Hello and welcome to the Pod Awakens. My name is Jordan, and this episode is mostly covering the Star Tours news and some of the physical media releases from Disney for the Disney Plus shows. This part is going to be lifted mostly from an episode of a Disney podcast I do called Behind the Dreams, where we talked about the ride. We talked about Disney's deal with Sony for the physical media stuff and those Disney Plus releases. It's me and my friend Jack. Jack has been on here before talking some Star Wars in the past. But I just want to give a little intro to it here that we're going to go ahead and kind of switch over to that. So it won't really have like a proper intro to the podcast or much of a proper closing. So I just wanted to go ahead and add that stuff in here now. So enjoy our thoughts on the new Star Tours news and the Disney physical media. But we do have some news to catch up on, and sadly, this news takes effect like right after I think both of us leave.
Yeah.
April 5th is when this Star Tours is supposed to take effect here, which sucks because it's like, oh, even if one of us could have rode this and kind of like relayed the experiences
Yeah.
of what it's like or how many times it took you to see the new stuff. Sometimes, when it first launches, they go ahead and put, like, they go ahead and do a rotation heavily featuring the new thing or exclusively featuring the new thing until a certain time. They didn't mention that in this, so I don't think that's the case. So you may go there on April 5th and not get it. I would assume April 5th they're probably going to be like really pimping out the new stuff on this
Yeah,
ride.
for sure. Even though after that, it's going to be a very similar cavalcade of the same scenes over and over. I
Yes.
feel like I'm always like it's going to be different, and then I go to Naboo again, and I'm like, man,
That's the one I was going to mention. I get Naboo like all the time.
every time, and it's always the ending where the N1 starfighter crashes through the viewport and the pit droid falls in.
Not
It's always
always.
that.
Not
Or
always.
or it's the one where it bounces off
Yeah,
and then
I've
he
gotten
just
the
hit.
bounce
Yeah,
off one a lot
it's one of the
recently.
two. It's one of the two.
I would love. I see. The thing is, though, like I've become so accustomed to the Naboo thing that, like, when it ends with like the Boba Fett like asteroid thing, I'm like, man, I want it Naboo. Like, that is my favorite ending destination, I think. But uh, okay, so yes, they announced this like last year too that they were bringing new Ahsoka content to Disneyland and Disney World's Star Tours. This time they updated it and they said they're bringing some new stuff. This was released March 5th. StarWars.com put out an article about it, but they said that inspired by events in the recent Ahsoka series on Disney Plus is one of several updates coming to Star Tours starting April 5th at WDW Resort, Disneyland Resort, and Disneyland Paris. Among the new additions when you climb aboard your new next Star Speeder flight this spring, Ahsoka, Cassian Andor from Andor, or you can say from Rogue One, and
Yep.
Din Djarin and Grogu from The Mandalorian will be added to the urgent transmissions that may greet riders during their journey. And StarWars.com is excited to share an exclusive still from Ahsoka's transmissions below. Which is a weird way to word it because they actually have pictures of Andor and Mando and Grogu's transmission. So I don't know why they were just highlighting the Ahsoka transmission. Who knows? Maybe those are not like the real pictures for Andor and Mando and that they're going to look different.
Maybe, yeah.
With these additions, you'll now have an opportunity to experience more than 250 storyline variations aboard the attraction, including a visit to the planet Peridia from Ahsoka, the series. The Star Tours update is the first one since Kef Burr was added at the release of Rise of Skywalker. And also, I guess at Disneyland for a limited time now through June 2nd, you can take a ride on Hyperspace Mountain, enjoy themed food and beverage, and collect new merchandise and more during Seasons of the Force. You can also watch new fireworks display as well.
Yeah.
So
I'm. I
go
wish I
ahead.
was able. I wish I was able to go on Star Tours during that time because it's it's one of my favorite attractions at Hollywood Studios. Even though like Rise of the Resistance exists, and it's funny because Smuggler's Run, you think like riding the Millennium Falcon, that's every Star Wars fan's dream. Not as good as Star Tours still. So I'm just like I wish I would get to I could go on this, and I also wish that they would have added like a Mandalore type destination. I think that would have been
Mm-hmm.
really cool to go into like the abandoned like bases and everything like
Yes.
that, going into the caves. That could have been so cool to see. Maybe that's something they can add in the future, but I think that would have been a really excellent destination to add as well. But also, I understand like there's a lot that goes into probably reprogramming these simulators, getting the footage, getting everything ready. So I totally understand it if they're prioritizing one over the other. But I have a feeling that once the Mando movie comes out, they're probably going to add something like that. I would hope so, at least. But yeah, that I'm very excited to see that, and I think it also adds more stuff for younger fans of Star Wars who have just started getting into it. With the sequel trilogy and everything, growing up with things like the Ahsoka show, the Clone Wars, and with Mandalorian, and I think that that's really good that they're continually showing love and updating this attraction because it deserves it. It deserves that love.
Yeah, I think um I've seen some wild stuff of people being like, why is this ride even still open when you have Smuggler's Run and the other one? I'm like, well, because it's better than Smuggler's Run, like you said.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
unfortunately, you don't feel like you're doing much in Smuggler's Run. And I was really excited to ride it. When I first rode it, I was a little disappointed because I'm like, that's it. Now there are some fun things to do because you can like activate Chewbacca mode where you just hear Chewie speaking the whole time instead of Hondo and all that. But it's like you would think when they're creating a new ride like this that they would have thought to have more than one mission for Smuggler's Run. There's no replayability. There's no like reason to re-ride it in the sense of maybe just getting on other positions, like other like, oh, I'm gonna um be the gunner this time. I'm gonna be. But some of those positions suck. You're like,
Yeah, and
oh, I just pressed this button like 2 times,
yeah, and
and
why is the button on the wall as well? Like that's the
yeah,
thing. Like the button's on the wall. Why not put it like on a console in front of the seat? Just baffling for that.
yeah. So it's like that was disappointing. The fact that like when this is what Disney should be doing, right? Is updating old rides like this when they allow you to update it. This ride was changed from the original Star Tours to be a simulator that has a screen, right? That's 3D instead of what it was before, which was just a film playing with the animatronic of Rex, driving you. And once they made that change, they did it to add the variations. Well, now that we got new movies and new shows, let's update that because for some, like you said, for some people that go there now, their Star Wars is Rey or their Star Wars is Mandalorian. They grew up with these characters, especially with them being on Disney Plus now, instead of like you don't have to rent anything. There's no movie to rent. Like these kids are growing up because they have Disney Plus so they can watch Bluey, and then they're going over and they're watching, Mandalorian or so there's a level of accessibility there that then if they go ride the ride and are like, "Oh, like I didn't get to see any of the characters I enjoyed." There's an option now where they can. I also think people are misreading this. I swear people don't read the full thing. And I'm trying to find where it said this, but people are saying that the Andor scene should be the um, Aldani escape that they had on the asteroid, like this planet that they did in the middle arcs of Andor. There is no Andor scene from this. It sounds like the only Andor and Mando content is coming from the transmissions. The highlighted part is the Paradia planet with the space whales, and even showed a little clip of this too when they announced it. So maybe I'm wrong, but Jack, do you get the same impression? I don't think there's anything other than the transmissions for Andor and Mandalorian at this point.
Yeah, I don't, at least this announcement doesn't seem to portray any idea that those are going to get individual scenes. I mean, if they do, that's awesome, but I don't think
And they
there's
should,
like
right?
yeah, there's not like a direct announcement in this year that would indicate to me at least that, oh yeah, they're also getting scenes. I feel like they would probably announce all of them then if they were trying to do that. Because otherwise, like, how are you going to know if you got it? I mean, maybe it's just a ploy to get people to ride it over and over again, hoping to get the Mando and Andor scenes, unknowing to them that they don't exist. But yeah, I think it's just the Ahsoka scene.
Yeah, which I just want to temper expectations because I think people are going to go in there riding this 50 times and be like, I only got the Ahsoka scene and just be really confused. So I just wanted to share that expectation because they never clearly mention that. They say, uh, you know, they start off talking about the Purgils with Ahsoka, and they say that moment is inspired by Ahsoka, the series, and they're like, among those is the Andor and Mandalorian urgent transmissions. That's it. Then they just talk about how the last time they added anything was during Rise of Skywalker. They usually only add one thing at a time like this. So I would assume it's just that one scene. Um, so leave that for what you will, I guess. Take that for what you will. I think that's fine. I think it's cool when you can add characters as the urgent transmissions and then also have scenes that are based off of whatever. And like you said, that they might add something. Usually they seem to add something for every film. They didn't for Rogue One and Solo, which actually this shows this is the first time they're updating anything that is outside of the Skywalker saga.
Mhm.
All of their updates before have been from like Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker. So
I mean, I guess
interesting.
technically, Galaxy's Edge, they did add Batu, so
I meant
technically,
to. Oh, you mean
yeah,
like at the exit thing? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, like the first time they're adding anything based off of not
right, yeah,
the movies, right? Like not the Skywalker saga. But Ahsoka is so closely associated with those characters because of the Clone Wars, and of course you have a live action Ahsoka. So now you're going to go ahead and put her in this attraction to get those fans that grew up with Ahsoka. Like we said, not just people growing up with Mandalorian or whatever. There's people that grew up with Ahsoka that before you're like, how could we put her in this without it being like, without the jolt of it being a cartoon character? Well, now you got a live action Ahsoka, so you can do that and it makes sense and it's, it works.
exactly, yeah.
Hopefully this ride never dies. I think it's fine. The wait time is always fluctuating. There's times where I'm like, oh, it's 5 minutes, and then there's times where I come back later and it's long, and I'm like, wow, that's odd.
I think it's because everyone rushes to Galaxy's Edge for Rise of the Resistance, and then when they're getting off that ride, they cycle back through and fill into the Star Tours queue.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah,
guess, but
probably. I was gonna say, like when we were just talking about, oh, maybe I can get to Hollywood. My thought was to ride Star Tours. I would love to ride Rise, but that is probably not going to happen. Star Tours has a reasonable wait, and I would prefer that over Millennium Falcon. Like the Falcon has a great queue, it has a great pre-show with Hondo and all that, but just like I get more enjoyment out of walking through the Falcon and all that than I do actually the mission of like, oh, we got to go get the coaxium and blow up some people and then
yeah. It's
shoddily
Star Tours.
return.
Yeah, and Star Tours just has more variety at least.
It's
So
less work too. It's like you're
yeah,
driving 3PO. I'm not.
yeah, yeah.
Less stress. Okay, so this is kind of related to just Disney as a whole, but it's going to go into our next topic as well. But Disney physical media um, has made a deal with Sony to manufacture and distribute their DVDs and Blu-rays. So Disney before it shut down all sending Blu-rays and stuff to Australia. That was done. I don't know if that'll affect Australians now with this, but this sounds like it is a US and Canada distribution deal, so probably not. Um, but then people were worried about Disney maybe cutting physical media at some point. In fact, this might actually be better and alleviate some of those fears for people because Sony. Let's not forget. I think people sometimes forget this. Sony is the person that made Blu-ray. And Disney has a good relationship with Sony because when Blu-ray came out, let's not forget it was competing with ultra high def or whatever they called it, UHD, right?
UHD, yeah.
Was what it was. And Microsoft was pushing that. Like if you had an Xbox, you could watch the UHDs. PlayStation, which was Sony, was pushing their own product of the Blu-ray. Disney kind of cemented Blu-ray's win when they signed an exclusive deal with Sony to have their movies use Blu-ray instead of the UHD. I forget who made UHD. I don't think it was Microsoft. I think it was like was somebody else that was in the physical media like Blu-ray making thing. That kind of, in my opinion, because I remember like I waited to see who was going to win this battle because before I switched to do anything. You know, people already know I'm a physical collector. I had been collecting DVDs at this point. Blu-ray and UHD was battling it out, and I was like, I'm not buying any of these until it's cemented. I'm not going to be stuck with like a laser disc situation like some people were. Do you know who it was? Did you look it up at all?
I can't even find it. I feel like they've fallen away that far. They've fallen off real hard.
Yeah, it's like so old. I don't even remember if I'm saying if it's UHD was actually what it was. UHD versus Blu-ray. Because now people kind of call the 4K UHDs. So, see, Blu-ray, original,
Yeah,
competitor.
all I can find really is.
Oh, it was HD DVD is what they called it.
Oh,
that's
okay.
right.
That's okay.
And it was developed by Toshiba. Okay.
Yeah, well,
I remember
no one
like
remembers them.
Universal, I think, made the deal with them, HD DVDs. And this was 2006, and then 2008 they abandoned the format. So, like I said, when Disney kind of made the deal with Sony, in my mind, it cemented it. And I remember people back then kind of saying like, "Oh, that's a huge deal for Sony to get the for Blu-ray to get Disney on board with them." And so there's a history there. I think a lot of times people focus too much on the movie divisions and they say like, "Oh, but like you know, there's a battle between Spider-Man rights between these two." But like the companies themselves work together very well when it comes to this type of stuff. And let's not forget Sony has a deal to put stuff on Disney Plus in the second pay window now. So that's how like Morbius is now on Disney Plus. So if you're looking for Morbius, there you go. I'm sure Madam Web will premiere there in 2 years after it goes to wherever. I think Stars is what the first window is for them.
Oof.
So this is a big deal because Sony actually cares about their physical formats because they are the ones that made it, right? This is their stuff. And from what I read from collectors and stuff, Sony's physical releases are very, very good. So a lot of people are thinking that's going to help Disney's because a lot of people complained about Disney's audio on their Blu-rays, and they also complained about how they don't have like Dolby Vision, which Sony puts on like all of theirs, right? So, and you can watch the Dolby Vision, I think, on Disney Plus. But how good is that Dolby Vision on Disney Plus if you have bad internet, right? Like, so that's the issue there. So Disney is offloading that. With that comes the closure of Disney Movie Club, which I'm sure if you are a Disney Movie Club subscriber, you got the email before this news broke, because I did. And I was like, what the hell? They're closing down Disney Movie Club? Part of that was relief, because every month I have to go in there and decline the title if I don't need the movie. And then sometimes I get stuck with 2 copies of the movie, like I have with Black Panther Wakanda Forever at this moment. Because I bought it at like Target and then did not decline the thing on Disney Movie Club, so now I have 2. But part of it was sadness, because I'm like, what about the exclusives? And so I just bought 2 exclusives as one of my last orders. They were like $10 each. Got Make Mine Music and Melody Time, which were exclusively on Disney Movie Club. I had already had 3 Caballeros Saludos Amigos, which were also exclusive. But I was going to buy Black Cauldron, and that's already sold out, and they're not restocking that. So there's a hole in my collection right there. That's the only Disney movie I'm missing, actually. But besides the new stuff, like there's some new stuff I got to get, but those 3 were the only ones I needed, and now Black Cauldron sold out. So eBay says they're like $75.
Oof.
So I'm hoping Sony's like, we got to get that Black Cauldron money, man, and like make the Black Cauldron again. It's sad on the Disney Movie Club side of it, and like those exclusives, I'm hoping Sony will make that. And it really comes up to how much say is Sony going to get. I guess, can Sony just make anything, or do they have to get approval from Disney? You know, can they be like, Song of the South, baby, we're releasing it? Or
oh no, I don't think any self-respecting company would do that.
No, they're not going to.
2024,
they're not going to do that. But you know, that was kind of the extreme example. But will they do like Black Cauldron, which was a bomb, right? And a lot of people don't like it, but there are diehard collectors, and Sony might say, hey, there's money to be made there. And really, how's it going to affect the Disney Plus releases? That's a question, as we're going to transition to that topic soon. But I guess, Jack, I know you're not much of a physical collector, but your thoughts on this deal with Sony?
I mean, I think it's probably good in the long run for Disney. It takes some burden off of their plate to deal with, and allows them to focus in more on other things that people have asked them to focus on. So I think that it's probably a smart strategic decision by Disney. I know it's not ideal for a lot of people like you who are collectors, but I understand completely why Disney is doing it. Like, it makes sense if they're trying to grow out in other directions, like with streaming, like in parks and investments like that. It makes sense to move beyond kind of like dealing with physical media, especially as, you know, there's not as much money in it as there used to be. So pushing it to a company that focuses more intensely on that, it's kind of a win-win for both organizations and both companies.
Yeah, I would take this over them shutting it down completely. So I think there's good. I think there's good stuff to be had here. I mean, Bob Iger said like a year ago when he came in, like we need to make more money off of the different avenues for like these films and TV shows. And he mentioned that. And that's why I was not surprised when the first batch of the Disney Plus shows came out, because I'm like, this is what he was talking about. Like, how do you make more money off of something that sits on Disney Plus? Because right now you're only getting the subs for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You put it out there for the collectors that will go and double dip. I have a Disney Plus subscription. I also own all 4 of those shows, right? Like, in case if anything happens to them. Also, I like the better quality than having to rely on streaming. If my internet goes out, I can watch them. There's reasons I like that. I liked it on my shelf, you know, to be sitting next to the rest of the Star Wars and Marvel stuff. This is what Bob was talking about. So I do think this deal also cements that. Sony and them are Sony's Disney's licensed out to Sony. Sony's paying for the license, I assume, right? And they're going to So Disney's reaping in money from that, and I'm sure Disney's going to reap in a certain portion of the actual money from the Blu-ray releases too. So there's money to be had for both sides here, and I think that's why they're doing it, and it's a good sign. I like to take it for a good sign. All right. Well, we got Wave 2 of the Disney Plus Steelbooks. Same artist from the first batch, which is great. I'm trying to find the artist's name. This website doesn't have it, so I apologize. But they do a really good work, and they're releasing on April 30th with the pre-order coming March 12th. So by the time this episode is up, we're going to be really close to that pre-order. I'm really curious to see if these show up on Disney Movie Club at all. Since they're not exclusives, they can. The last order for Disney Movie Club is May 20th. I think is the last order you have to make. So in that sense, there is, I think, a good chance they show up there, and I hope they do because they have a buy one get one 60% off. So I'm hoping, because that's how I got Loki, and when I bought Mando season 1, I paid full price, and I got Loki for like $17 or something. It was crazy. And then later I bought WandaVision and Mando season 2 on Amazon. But that was a good deal, so I'm hoping to take advantage of that if I can, save some money. But these are what they are, and it seems like this is a pattern now, Jack, where they have 2 Marvel, 2 Star Wars on these releases. The last batch was WandaVision, Loki, Mando season 1, Mando season 2. And they staggered the release. Loki was September, WandaVision was November, and Mando was December. This time, they're all releasing on April 30th. We have Moon Knight, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Andor, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Which also is very interesting is that Obi-Wan Kenobi says complete series, which I think makes sense. I know Ewan McGregor's been holding out for season 2. Even then, they can call it something else. It doesn't have to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then the fact that Falcon and the Winter Soldier is listed as a first season. Moon Knight, we kind of thought, but I'm surprised that one's not complete series. WandaVision says complete series. So curious on if there will be a season 2 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier renamed as Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Crossing my fingers for that one. More Sam. That's my take on that. Just more Sam. As much Sam Wilson as Anthony Mackie is willing to perform. Just more of it. Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of people are reading into the release order. Right? Like Loki was not before Falcon the Winter Soldier, but they released that because Loki season 2 was coming out, so they're getting on that thing. And then WandaVision was just their most successful series, so they're like, put that out there. Because people are like, why'd they skip Book of Boba Fett? Why'd they skip Hawkeye? I assume Hawkeye would be in another batch. If they make another batch, I'm assuming the next batch is going to be made by Sony. And I'm assuming they will still release these. I just hope that they keep, like, Sony is smart and keeps the same artist and keeps these things uniform, because like even these like have the same font for the number 1 on the spine that Loki and Mando had, and I'm like, please keep that same same look. But where was I going with this? Yeah. So, and I assume for Book of Boba Fett, they're going to wait until they drop Mando season 3 because those two tie in together more.
Mm-hmm.
That they do 2 and 2. They were like, why do Book of Boba Fett and then Andor or Obi-Wan instead of doing the 2 standalone shows that do not interfere with anything in one batch, which is what they're doing here. And plus Andor's release, Andor season 2 was originally scheduled to come out this year, but because of the strikes is getting pushed. This was probably in the works before then, that they're like, oh, this will be released before season 2, catch people up that don't have Disney Plus. And then Obi-Wan, of course, is a standalone thing that prequel fans will go buy. And I'm assuming
Yep.
that is what their thought process was.
Yeah, I think these are good shows. I probably won't pick any of them up because maybe Falcon and the Winter Soldier, just because I really like that show. But I'm not. I have. I think I've said this to you before, Jordan. I have too many expensive hobbies to
Yeah,
pick
yeah.
up physical media collection as well.
Yeah, I have cut a lot of my hobbies to the point where I am spending money pretty much just on comics and Blu-rays. And as I'm getting ready to have a kid, like I have to prioritize which stuff I do want to collect, and those are like still the two things I want to collect. Now, the comics will also fall by the wayside at some points. Like I'm really trying to limit it to like 3 books that I want to read monthly and then read the rest digitally. Um and when it really comes to the to like trade paperbacks, there's just like certain characters I want more than others. With the movies, it's like, and Blu-rays, some of those have kind of fallen by the wayside too, where I don't own like every show that I used to like. I own like, before I had a wife and everything, like, and I had like bills and stuff. When I lived at my parents' house, it was like, oh, this show in the store, especially before streaming, I heard good things about this show. How else am I going to watch it? I'm going to buy this season. I'm going to see if I like it or not. It's kind of like this roulette wheel of like, will I like it or not? Right. Most of the time I did. These, like the ones I want to prioritize: Marvel, Star Wars, DC. Those are the things I'm going to be purchasing kind of going forward. And plus I have my Disney animated film collection that I like to have too. So eventually I'll have to catch up and get like Strange World and like, uh, I haven't got one since Encanto, I think. So anything post
Turning Red.
Encanto, I have that one actually. That was a Disney
Okay.
Movie Club I do have. That's Pixar, by the way. So I wasn't counting
Okay.
that one.
Okay.
But
Wish when it comes out.
yes, Wish when it comes out. Strange World. What was another one? There had to be one more in there.
No, Elemental's Pixar. No. So
Okay.
I think you might
I do
be
collect Pixar too, but
good then.
yeah. So I do have to get those at some point. But yeah. So that'll, like, I don't have Soul. I don't have. I have Luca. I haven't watched it yet, but
Both good movies.
I think that was another Disney Movie Club that I didn't cancel, and I'm like, oh, I need it anyway. So. All right, and I just want to thank Jack for letting me use that snippet from our other podcast, put it in here. Uh, Coming up later this week, we have, as always, our chronological Clone Wars watch with Logan, who's watching for the first time, and myself, who's watching for the second time, but first time chronologically. That episode drops on Wednesday, where we will be talking the final 3 episodes of season 2 with the Boba Fett storyline. So make sure you check that out. I have a lot of plans coming up for the podcast this year, trying to get some High Republic talk to build into the Acolyte, since that series is taking place in that era. Just wanting to cover more of that stuff anyway, because I enjoy it. But yeah, so make sure you contact us at podawakens on all of our socials. Podawakens@gmail.com if you want to send us a lengthy email. And have a great rest of your week, and we will catch you next time.